على نبينا صل على محمد صل على نبينا صل على محمد صل على حبيبنا صل على محمد صل على رحيمنا صل على محمد صل على كريمنا صل على محمد صل على نبينا صل على محمد صل على حبيبنا صل على محمد بلغ العلا بكماله كشف الدجى بجماله حسنت جميع خصاله صلوا عليه وآله. Allahu Ekber, Allahu Ekber. Allahu Ekber, Allahu أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm carrying on with the discussion about Hazrat Umar bin Khattab, whose discussion I started with a few sermons ago, and I'll start with the same topic today. It is narrated from Zayd bin Thabit that his father told him that on one occasion he was with Hazrat Umar in a place called Hara. Hara is a place which is somewhere in the eastern part of Medina, and it is also known as Hara Banu Qurayza, and it's also Horatul Burra, which is in the southern part of Medina, in the southern side, 3 miles away. And he says that as we went further to a place called Sirar, there was a fire which was lit. And Sirar is 3 miles away from Medina. And Hazrat Umar said, "O Aslam, I think and I hope these wayfarers who are stuck." And he said that as we approached them, it was a lady with some children who was cooking for them, and they were crying for food. And as Umar said, "Assalaam Alaikum," those who have lit fire. And he didn't want to tell them people of hell or people of fire. He said people who have lit fire. And the lady responded that "Wa alaikum salam." And then he inquired that, "Can I come close?" And the lady said, "You can come with a good intention, otherwise you must turn away from me." Then Hazrat Umar came closer, and then what she meant was, "If you have anything good to tell me, come, otherwise don't." And the Hazrat Umar asked that, "What's the problem with you?" And then she said, "We are stuck here." And then Hazrat Umar asked that, "Why are the children crying?" And then she said, "It's because of hunger." And Hazrat Umar asked that, "What are you cooking?" And then she said, "There's nothing in the pot. I'm just cooking this. I'm boiling these stones. Otherwise, I'm waiting for them to fall asleep." And may Allah have mercy on Hazrat Umar. Hazrat Umar said, "Well, how do you think God will know about this affair? And how do you think even your leader will know about this?" And then the lady said, "Of course, the leader is unaware of this condition." And then Aslam said, Hazrat Umar came to me and said, "Come with me." And then we came quick to Darul Haqi. And then during the time of Hazrat Umar, Darul Haqi is a place which he built, and where it was where they kept food, and where they could find anything for a wayfarer or who wanted to go for a journey. And he had also had some food reserves for people who were living around Medina. In any case, he took a sack of grain and some other food stuff, and then Aslam says he told me to carry them. And Hazrat Umar said, "No, put it on my shoulders." And then Aslam said, "I requested that I should carry the load." And Hazrat Umar said, "No, put them on my shoulders." And then Hazrat Umar inquired from him that, "Are you going to carry my load for me?" And then Aslam says, I put it on the shoulders of the Holy Prophet, of Hazrat Umar, and I followed him. And we went so fast, and he put down the food. There was some flour, and then he told her, say, "Please keep pouring into the pot, and I will starve for you." And then in another place says, in another occasion says, "Just keep on putting flour, and I will prepare some food for you." Aslam says, the narrator, that at that occasion, that Umar had a very thick beard, and smoke was going through the beard of the Hazrat, the Khalifa. And when the food was ready, Hazrat Umar said, bring some plate. And then she brought plates, and then Hazrat Umar said, "Feed the kids, and I will look after the other food for you." And the kids were satisfied, and whatever remained, Hazrat Umar left whatever food was left, and Hazrat Umar stood up, and Hazrat Aslam also stood with Hazrat Umar, and then he said, the lady said that may Allah reward you, because you reward the reward more than the leader. And then he said, when you go to the Amir al-Mu'mineen, if you go to meet the Amir al-Mu'mineen you're talking about, you will meet me there. And then it is narrated that Hazrat Umar moved away and then sat somewhere in a distance looking at this lady. And then Hazrat Aslam says, I asked that, do we need to serve her anymore? Do you want me to do anything else? And he didn't respond. And then we could see the kids playing and laughing with each other, and after a while they fall asleep. Then Hazrat Umar, thanking God, stood up and started moving. But before moving, he looked at me and said, "Oh Aslam, it is because of the hunger that these kids were staying awake and crying. I wish not to leave this place until these kids are fed and I could see the peace in them and satisfaction." Hazrat Muslim Maud radiallahu ta'ala an, regarding this incident, he writes that to cater for the needs of people, and for Hazrat Umar coming and make sure that they got what they wanted, which could not be afforded to her by anyone else. Of course, indeed, Hazrat Umar is teaching us that this was the responsibility of the state. And there's also another very touching incident, because Hazrat Umar, on one incident, he was walking around to see that everyone was okay within Medina, and there is a village called Milad Nami, which is about 3 miles away from Medina, and the researcher says maybe it is Siral, maybe because of the writer, the pronunciation may be different. But in any case, Hazrat Umar saw in that place that she found out that there were some children crying, and there was a lady and 2 children. And then when he asked, the mother said, "We have missed 2 meals." And then she said, "I'm just boiling these stones so that the kids can sleep." But Hazrat Umar returned immediately to Medina and then brought some food, some ghee, and then Aslam was requesting him to carry the Lord. But he said, "No, you don't have to carry my Lord, because who will carry my Lord at the day of judgment? Because carrying it is my responsibility. Because it was the responsibility of the state to feed those children, to look after that lady. I am the state, I'm the head of the state, I have to carry it to the lady." Hazrat Muslim Maud writes that even the wages which used to be given to the needy, and which we give to the needy, it doesn't mean that everyone has to be given. Rather, the Islamic State looks after the needy people, and this requirement is for those who are eligible to this, because the motive behind the reason why we give these wages, or why they were being given this help, was to encourage them to work. Otherwise, they were being discouraged from begging and becoming weak. Hazrat Umar, in order to stop the habit of begging, he used to rebuke them. He did not just give whoever came, asked, and then was given. When someone comes and is able to work and ask for anything, he would return them away. And one time, one lady came. She had a lot of food already. And then when she came to begging, then Hazrat Hazrat Umar took it away from her and threw it and gave it to the animals around, to the camels. And then he told her that now you can beg. Hazrat Umar makes it clear that you have to work with your hands. And the lesson to this lady was that if you beg when you don't have to beg, when you have already, then you face the same punishment. They should see the motive behind why Hazrat Umar did this, instead of condemning what he did, because some of them condemn this action of Hazrat Umar bin Khattab. In another place, when the second Caliph was talking about the same incident, about what Hazrat Umar did, he wrote and said, look at Hazrat Umar. Everyone was scared of him. Even kings used to fear him. Even Kisra or Caesars used to fear him. But in a dark night, Hazrat Umar, a person of this stature, when he found out that one of the subjects was suffering, he came, picked the food himself, and he never returned home until he prepared food for the woman and the kids. He waited for them to sleep peacefully, and then he returned to sleep peacefully. I've talked about Aslam, and there's another narration from him where he narrates that a caravan came to Medina, and they camped in the Eidgah, where they used to pray Eid. And Hazrat Umar asked Hazrat Umar bin Auf, Hazrat Umar asked bin Auf that can we guard them? And then they spent the whole night guarding these people. When he heard, Hazrat Umar had the voice of a child crying, and then he went there and said to the mother, say, look after the child who is crying. Then when he returned, he heard the cries again, and then came back. When he returned to the mother, told him the same thing like he said before. Then he went back. When it was in the third part of the night and still the child was crying, Hazrat Umar came to the mother and said, you are a very careless mother. What's the problem that the child has been crying all night? And then the mother said that, O servant of Allah, I'm trying to feed the child with some milk, and then the child doesn't. And then Hazrat Umar asked that why? And then he said, I'm trying not to feed this child because Hazrat Umar provides some wages for those the children who have been weaned, who have been stopped from breastfeeding. And Hazrat Umar, in the morning, told the people that this Hazrat Umar called someone and then announced that don't hurry, don't hesitate to breastfeed your children, to wean them, to let them stop feeding because you think I'll be giving you wages for those who don't breastfeed. Hazrat Muslim Maud has narrated it in a different way, that in the beginning Hazrat Umar was not the wages was for those the mothers who are breastfeeding. They got some wages on behalf of their mothers. Rather, he changed. He says that the responsibility of feeding these children is upon the mothers. We don't have to be feeding them. Rather, it has to be beyond that. But on one occasion, when he was moving outside, and Hazrat Umar had the cry of a child, and the child was screaming, and the mother was trying to make the baby sleep, And after a long time, the child didn't keep quiet. The mother slapped the child and said, said, this is, I condemn Umar for this. And Hazrat Umar came to the tent and he inquired that what's the problem? But because the lady didn't know Hazrat Umar, she was among those people of the caravan. And he said that Hazrat Umar doesn't even know that the breastfeeding children are required to get some wages. I came here, I came near so that I find something from Hazrat Umar for my child. Hazrat Umar went to the food store and they wanted to carry the food on behalf of Hazrat Umar, but Hazrat Umar said, I have to carry this myself, because when I will be slashed on the day of judgment for my mishap, will you be there? You won't carry my load for me. And then he carried it. And then after that, Hazrat Umar said that even the breastfeeding children should be given wages as well. Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam said that Ammar bin Hazama narrates that Hazrat Umar narrates that the narrator said they were making a farm, they were making a fence around their farm, and the father told the son, I'm too old, I will be dead tomorrow, and I won't have any benefit with this. And Hazrat Umar told him that he should plant some trees. And then the narrator said, I saw Hazrat Umar joining hands with my mother, and they started planting trees on our farm. Hazrat Muslim Maud has narrated this, trying to urge people never to be lazy and slack. And you say that if you plant some trees and you benefit from those trees, you should leave in those to come after you to benefit from such plants. And Hazrat Muslim Maud says that Hazrat Umar used to guard the city, used to move around, and then on one occasion Hazrat Umar had the lady reciting some poems, and then Hazrat Umar found out that the husband had left for a fight. And after that, Hazrat Umar said no soldier should remain away over 4 months. If any soldier wants to go beyond four months, he has to even to go with the wife, or he has to be sent back home. And in relation to this, Hazrat Umar said that when he had the verses she was reciting, Hazrat Umar inquired that, what was your intention? Didn't you have any bad intentions reciting what you did? And then she said no. And then Hazrat Umar said, I'm writing a letter to your husband so that he returns back to you. And then Hazrat Umar further inquired, like I've already mentioned it in my earlier submissions, that Hazrat Umar set a time for the soldiers not to exceed 4 months out of their homes, or they have to go with their families. Hazrat Aslam, the narrator, who was a free slave of Hazrat Umar bin Khattab, he says that on one occasion I was guarding with Hazrat Umar, and then we saw a tent and we intended to go there. When we reached the tent, there was a lady who was in labor pains and she was crying. And then Hazrat Umar inquired about this lady, and she said, I am a traveler and I have nothing. Then Hazrat Umar started crying, and then he came quickly, returned to his house, and then told Hazrat bint Kuthum said, and then Hazrat Umar told the story to the wife. And then Hazrat Umar, he took whatever was there for Hazrat Kulthum. And Hazrat Kulthum came to the lady who was in pains, and the husband was there but could not recognize who Hazrat Umar was. And then Hazrat Umar started talking with him, and then the wife delivered, and Hazrat Kulthum came to Hazrat Umar and inquired that, Ya Amirul Mu'minin, O leader of the believers, then you should tell your husband the glad tidings that the wife has delivered, that the wife has delivered a boy. When the husband had this, then he realized he was sitting with this great man. That's when he realized that it was Hazrat Umar sitting next to him. Then Hazrat Umar looked after them and then gave them whatever they needed until they returned to their home. Said bin Saib and Abu Salma bint Abdul Rahman, they both narrate that whatever Hazrat Umar said, he fulfilled his his vows. He was soft where he needed to be soft, and he was harsh where it was required to be harsh. He became the father of the orphans, and he even looked after the children of the husbands who were out fighting. He could even come and knock at their doors that, do you need anything? And he used to say that if you need anything, I will buy the stuff you need myself and bring it to you. I don't need that you should be deceived or you should be cheated. And sometimes the ladies could send their children, or sometimes Hazrat Umar would when he used to walk in the streets, the children in Medina would follow him behind, and then he would look after those who had no mothers, and he would buy stuff for them, the children who were orphaned. And whenever they used to whenever the messages came from the army who were outside, Hazrat Umar would send the message to the ladies whose husbands were out fighting. And if there's no one who was able to read the letter, Hazrat Umar would read the letters himself. And he would tell them that our envoy will be going from here on a certain date. If you want to write anything to your husbands, write your letters and they will be delivered. And sometimes they would take the ink and ink pots and then they would write. And those who couldn't write, Hazrat Umar would even request them sometimes that, come near my office, come near my door, and I'll write the letters on your behalf, those who couldn't write. And he could even write on behalf of them, of those wives who couldn't write, and then would send them to their husbands. Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates that I saw Hazrat Umar when he was carrying sacks of flour on the horse. And then he was going to a place called Bari. And Hazrat Ali was wondering that, where are you going? Which direction are you taking? And Hazrat Umar said that I'm taking this. It was a camel which was laden with flour. And Hazrat Umar said, I'm going to donate this. And then he says that you have defined ways for the Khulafas who would follow after you, which would be very hard for them to follow. And then he said, "O Abul Hassan, don't condemn me. I swear in the name of who sent Muhammad with truth, if there is anything that goes wrong to the borders of Euphrates, Hazrat Umar will be responsible for that." Hazrat Muslim says that in the time of Hazrat Umar, a person who had turned Muslim came and came with his head down. Of course, he might have had a problem, and then he was worried, and the head had dropped. And Hazrat Umar knocked at his cheek and says, "This is the time of victory for Islam. Why do you have to walk when your head is down?" Even if you have any problem, whatever problem you might have, you don't have to look down. You don't have to drop your head, because this is the time when Allah has given us leadership. And if you know that Islam will be victorious, why do you cry? You don't have to cry on petty things. At any loss, you don't have to be crying. Regarding this, Hazrat Muslim Maud, the second Caliph, after migration from Qadian, he talked about this, and he said that a believer doesn't have to see that what has he lost. Whatever loss you may incur, you shouldn't ponder over this. Rather, you should see why you lost what you lost. If you lost whatever you had because of Allah and for the victory of Islam, if you lost everything, went away out of your hands because of Allah and His religion, then Allah will give you bigger things. You don't have to worry about what you have lost in the way of Allah. Likewise, Hazrat Muslim Maud was talking about an incident regarding Hazrat Umar. And Hazrat Muslim Maud wrote and said, though Hazrat Umar had to suffer some pain, and then he established justice, which now we are striving to establish in the Islamic world. There was a gentleman who was a great leader of the Christians, Assalaam. And when the tribe of these people had turned Muslims and they wanted to go for Hajj, there was a big crowd during Hajj, and then someone stepped on his foot. Rather, they say that his feet got stuck in the juba, in the gown he was wearing. And then he said, I've got about 7,000 people who are my followers. Rather, it is said that the 7,000 were his army. But when someone stepped on his foot, he slapped him. And then he said, you're disgracing me. You don't know who I am. You ought to have walked a distance away from me. And the person who was being slapped just kept quiet. But another Muslim was crying who saw this, and he said, don't you realize that the religion you've accepted is Islam, where there is no discrimination, there's no distinction between rich and poor? Because we don't give preferences to people according to their financial status. And then he said, if you are reported to Hazrat Umar, if this gets to Umar, he will take revenge on behalf of the Muslim you slapped. And then he said, is there anybody who can go to Hazrat Abu Banu Ahem? And then he said, I don't know, but I know Umar is like this. And then listening this, he made the tawaf, the circumambulation of Kaaba quickly, and went to Hazrat Umar. And then he said, if someone slaps someone, what do you used to do? Or what is the punishment of someone who slaps someone? And then he said, in return, I slap him back. And then he said, if a big person slaps a small person, what have you been doing to punish these people? And then he said, there is no punishment between big or small. And then he asked him, is it not you who has done this? And then he lied. He said, no, I didn't slap anyone, but I asked him. And then immediately Hazrat Umar stood, and the man stood and then ran with his people, and then joined the Roman army. He fled. He couldn't bear the justice which was established by Hazrat Umar. This is the justice which was established by Hazrat Umar, and which is a lesson for the Muslim leaders today. Inshallah, I will continue with the same discussion in the future sermons, inshallah. But at this time, I want to talk about some deceased members of our community. First of all, I'll start with Mr. Abdul Wahid Oraya, who was the Sadr in Germany. He was also Secretary Tabiat in Switzerland before. He successfully put the flag of Ahmadiyya on Mount Everest, but on return he fell down and then passed away. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. Besides he's been survived by a widow and 3 children. There is also a brother and sisters as well. Mr. Tariq from Switzerland writes that Abdul Wahid Waraj Sahib, until his death, he has been a very constructive member of the Jamaat. He was a very good role model, a good office bearer, and he worked in different capacities, but he didn't have pride in him. He did not only preach helping others, rather he practically helped each other and taught others. He has worked in different places in Africa under IIEA, and even many youths have gone to Africa seeing his example. As a Sadaqul Ahmadiyya, he would find ways of carrying out duties within the Jamaat. He had an exceptional way of sacrifice, financial sacrifice and otherwise. He has a son who is studying in Jamia Ahmadiyya at the moment in Germany. And Amir Saab writes that he had a very good, even the child is like his father. He was a person who discharged Allah's rights and rights of fellow human beings. Many people have sent their condolences. Justice Lodge has sent his remarks that he used to work for a big telecommunication company, and he said, I worked with him for almost 3 years. And he was an able person, not because of his expertise, but it was because of his practice and his ways that convinced me. And I had a chance to talk to him besides our work. And the Murabi Sahib writes that the deceased used to attend Juma on time, a devotee and a devout lover of Khilafat as well. National Secretary Mar Rizwan Sahib writes regarding the deceased that he used to work for Microsoft engineering company in Switzerland, and on one occasion he told me that we are closing the Microsoft branch here and we are going to Silicon Valley. And he was told, we shall transfer everything, we shall transport everything of yours, and the wages will be much more. And he said, I'm not taking this job, I'm not taking the offer, because I don't want to leave what I'm doing right now here for the Jamaat. And after some time, he was told that another company, Swisscom, bought the company. And then later on he said, you are taking me to Silicon Valley, but Allah's arrangement was here for me. But even my wages here is bigger than my boss's. And Zaid Saab, who is Secretary of External Affairs, he says, I used to know the deceased personally. I used to work with him in Sadr Khudam Ahmadiyya. He's someone who was very punctual in his prayers, who used to supplicate, and also was a role model in terms of his love for Khilafat. He had a simple life, and I never saw him annoyed or cross with anyone. And I never felt any anger even in his voice. I never saw him arguing with anyone. If there was any misunderstanding, would take them on side and then explain. He used to be very kind to the children. He used to smile all the time, and he was an example for the pledge we make that I will give precedence to my religion over worldly affairs. He did not only guide he wasn't only a guide, but a helper in all ways. Under Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, he also established the hiking club, and he used to love his religion and members as well. And the writer says, on one occasion, don't you fear hiking all the time? And then he said, though I fear hiking, and my family doesn't like me to take such ventures, but I've taken a solution to this problem, that I met the Khalifa, and then this to the Khalifa, if he allows me, if he approves my suggestion, then I will be hiking 7 peaks, highest peaks of the world, and I will put the flag of Ahmadiyya there. And he thought that maybe I might refuse him, but I said, you go, if you can't go, why not? You should go ahead. And then he said, this is what resolved my fears and the fears for my family. And he worked tirelessly, and then he used to take one peak after another, and then he had taken the 7th was Mount Everest, where he put the flag of Ahmadiyya. The writer writes that I don't know whether I can say that his death is shahadat or not, but I can say he was a living example. But in my opinion, he did whatever he did with an intention. He went to put the flag of Ahmadiyya, the flag of Islam, at the highest point on earth, and he was successful in this. And he was successful in this journey, in this venture. In my opinion, he might have attained the status of martyrs. I hope and pray that Allah accords him this status of the martyrs, those who die in the way of Allah. Khadim Uraish Sahib, who is the father, said that it was clear in our eyes that he was advancing. He didn't look behind those who were trailing behind him. And they used to ask me that, why don't you stop him? And he used to say that even if I stop him, I can't stop him, because his intention is to put the Ahmadiyya flag at ever highest peak possible. And one friend writes that I asked the deceased that when you go hiking and then what do you listen over the phone? And Sadasaf said that I have downloaded the books of Hazrat Masih Maud, so I listen to these audio books of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam. And then he said, I inquired that how do you cope with the coldness at these highest peaks? And then he said, Murabi Sahib, I enjoy worshipping in these cold temperatures. And I also remember that the Holy Prophet used to go on higher mountains to worship Allah. Uraish Sahib said on one time and told him about the story when he went to North Alaska, which is one of the highest peak there. And it was so cold that as he was praying, his index finger was injured. It was almost frozen because of the coldness. And then they said, we have to cut it. We have to amputate it. And then he said, I can't lose my finger because this is the index finger which I use for shahada in prayers. I lift this finger during prayers. I can't afford to lose it. And by the grace of Allah, he did not lose the finger and it became fine afterwards. May Allah enable his family members to carry on with the good deeds he's left behind. May they carry on with the same passion. And he's someone who responded to the call of the Caliph of the time at all times. He's someone who was very loyal and who was advanced, and he was among such people whom we lose when they leave, then the void is felt. Like I said, he went to raise the flag of Islam, the flag of Ahmadiyya, at the highest peaks. I pray that may Allah forgive him and elevate his status in paradise. The second one I want to talk about today, the second deceased, is Amatul Qudus Sahiba. She was the wife of Dr. Shamim Sahib, and she was the daughter of Rahim Sahib. She passed away in Washington on 15th of July. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. By the grace of Allah, she was a Musia. She had signed to be a Musi. She had a relation with the first Caliph. She was a granddaughter of one of the Sahabi of the Prophet Messiah, ﷺ. Like I said, she was married Mia Abdul Malik Shamim, who is a son of Mr. Malik, and she's been survived by 2 sons. At the time of her marriage, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II said, after reciting the verses they recite during the marriage ceremony, the second Caliph said that it is very important to say the truth, as we've heard in these 3 verses. And it is because of the dishonesty and people not being sincere. It is always the cause for sins most of the time is dishonesty and lies. But if you are honest in whatever you say, if you are truthful without fear of favor, then we can be able to do good deeds. I hope and pray that Allah enables us to do good deeds, and Allah enables us to say the truth at all times and becomes a distinctive feature for all of us. There were also other people, other nikahs which were being recited there, and there were about 5 ladies. And then he said, it is Amatul Bashir's daughter who was also among those who were marrying that day. Malik Saib Baki Saib's sons. And he said that I pray that beside these 2, may Allah also make other marriages to be happy marriages. And then he said that let's pray for each and everyone. And our intention should be that we attain the victory in the end. And it is very important to have the true upbringing and the true way of life. Otherwise, all these marriages, all our lives are meaningless. unless until we pray that for these marriages and also the marriages that will happen in the future, they become a source of strength for Islam and Ahmadiyyat in the future as well. Saibzadi Amatul Amir, she worked as National Secretary America, local Sadr Lajna, local Washington, and she has worked in different capacities. Amatul Majid, the eldest daughter, writes that she kept her religion above everything else, and she could help whoever she could help, and she was mindful about her worship at all times. She was punctual in the 5 daily prayers, and whenever she could, she would offer the Tahajjud prayers. Rather, the daughter says, whenever I woke up during the night time, I would see her praying. There was someone who died in an accident, and it was the husband who died in an accident. And then she was a widow for almost 20 years, but her practice was just prayers and devoted to prayers. And she used to say that Allah's favors upon us are innumerable, enormous. And there was no word of condemnation from her mouth. And then she used to say that God says that la in shakartum la azidannakum, that if you thank me, if you appreciate, I'll give you more. Thus used to be her practice. She used to be appreciative, help others, and this was her practice and characteristic. And the daughter says, I've heard many writings of the Prince Messiah where she used to say that it is important to make sure that you don't break any relationship with your family ties. Rather, always try to make sure you maintain the family ties. If there was any guest, she would look for the guest where the guest was sitting, would try to sit near the guest, and also converse with the guest. The second daughter also writes that she had a very close relationship with the new converts, and people loved her so much. She used to serve everyone. She used to serve the needy and the poor. And she used to make sure that she doesn't meet anyone who is in need and she's not able to help. Amat Noor Sahiba, who is an elder sister. And then there was Shakura, who went for Hajj. And then she saw in the dream that Amatul Noor's, she used to be Amat Noshi, and then she saw that the home was in Mecca. And when Shakura came to her, and said that the interpretation is because you've come to me, you've come to my service. Amatul Basir Cyber writes, Shakura came and then started living in the house of Nashura. And then he used to later, Sister Shakura used to look after him. When even I've seen it myself, because she even brought her to me. And as a Shakura was also very appreciative of her service. And then when he was asked which place of Pakistan do you come from, she would say, I'm from Rabwa, and then carry on with the discussion. There is a lady called Ruqayya Asad who has been a member for many years. She said that many people have benefited from from her many times. And all the people I've met, they praise her. And people have been very, very appreciative of her deeds. She would admonish the Lajna members in light of the writings of the Prince Messiah at all times, and she has volunteered many times, and she has been working diligently with a lot of steadfast, and she was an example for others. She has preached peoples with love and kindness, and she had a very special character. And the writer says, as I grow older, the more respect grows for her. And she used to say that we should help the others. But Shira had sacrificed all the time for others, nothing for her. And many African American ladies have written about her and saying that she loved us so much and she has taught us so much about Ahmadiyyat. May Allah forgive her. May Allah help the children to remain attached to Khilafat. And she had fulfilled loyalty to Khilafat. And I'm a witness to this, and I've seen it many times that she has been very, very obedient. May Allah forgive her. And the next one I want to talk about today is Mukarrama Bismillah Begum Sahiba, the wife of Nasir Bahadur Sher, who was a bodyguard, private guard, who passed away recently in Germany. She passed away at the age of 84 years. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ahmadiyyat came into their family through Chaudhry Mazar of Katgari. She had an opportunity to work in Qadian. Rather, the father was given, the Sahabi was given a kurta, a shirt of the Prince Messiah alayhi salam. Mahmoud Saab Murabi, who is a mission in charge in Fiji, and he's the Amir Jamaat there. And he writes, Mahmoud Saab, the son, writes, who is a Mubalik and missionary in charge Fiji, and Amir there, that after the death of our father, whatever income we had from the land should pay chanda, and then should spend the rest on us. And she always admonished us and advised us that never leave Khilafat and always remain attached to Khilafat. Furthermore, Mahmoud Saab writes that after the death of our father, we never even felt the gap because of the love from our mother. And she used to tell me that you're a soldier for Ahmadiyyat, and you have to stand where the Caliph of the time stands. And this is what she used to tell me, and she has repeated this numerous times. And because our father had left the village we come from, many people from our village used to come to Rabwa, and whenever they visited, she would look after them. And she was well brought up, and then that even the students from foreign countries who were in Rabwa, they used to come to our home, and then mother would look after them. And most of them, they remember her, and many of the missionaries are witness to this. And the students were those from Africa and from Indonesia. And whatever little she used to have, she would distribute the money between us as we needed it, but first she would give chanda first. And Mahmud Sahib, because he's in the missionary field, and because he's there, he did not go to Rabwa to participate in the funeral rites of her mother. May Allah help the entire family to carry on with the good deeds of the mother, and may Allah elevate her status. May Allah forgive her and have mercy upon her. The next one is Kano Rushdi Sahib, who is the son of Kano Rushdi from Rawalpindi. It's a while since he passed away, and by the grace of Allah, the deceased was a Musi. After retirement from the army, he has been serving in different capacities, Secretary Rishtanata, Secretary. He also worked in Rawalpindi. He used to serve others quietly. He had a very kind nature, and he would help the neighbors and even those who needed help from him. May Allah have mercy upon him and upon all the deceased. I will be offering their funeral prayers in absentia after the Friday sermon.
Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر.